You think AI is a magic wand with infinite profit margins? Think again. Every prompt you type is a hidden cost no one wants to talk about. The truth is, these AI giants aren't just selling software, they're selling losses. Today, we're not talking about the magic of the latest LLM update or the hype cycle. We're stripping away the glossy marketing to look at the one thing that actually determines whether these companies survive or collapse: unit economics. For the past year, we've been fed a steady diet of hype. It's the greatest productivity tool ever, they say. The disruption is inevitable. And sure, the technology is incredible, but behind the scenes, a quiet, brutal calculation is happening. While users are obsessed with how smart the model is, the boardrooms are panicked about how much it costs to keep the lights on for every single query. We've reached a pivotal moment. The era of growth at all costs is colliding with the reality of a balance sheet. The painted door tests, the price hikes, the confusing subscription tiers, these aren't just random business moves. They are symptoms of a business model that is currently struggling to find its footing. So why are we here? Because if you're an investor, a developer, or just someone trying to navigate this new economy, you need to stop looking at user growth and start looking at the math. In this video, we're going to dive into the inference tax, the hidden cost that every AI company is forced to pay. We'll break down why your favorite AI tools are suddenly acting differently and why the real winners of this boom might not be who you think they are. This isn't just about code, it's about the underlying machinery of the AI economy. If you want to understand who is actually building a sustainable business and who is just burning through venture capital, you need to understand the unit economics. Let's get into the numbers. Let's look at the smoking gun. If you've been paying attention to the tech headlines lately, you've seen the tremors. Anthropic tweaking its pricing models, Microsoft silently shifting the mechanics of GitHub Copilot. To the casual observer, this might look like standard corporate housekeeping, just another company adjusting its tiers to optimize revenue. But if you dig deeper, if you actually look at the mechanics of what's happening, you'll realize this isn't just business as usual. This is a distress signal. For the past 24 months, we've been living in what I call the fairy tale phase of the AI revolution. It was the era of growth at all costs. Think about it. Startups were burning through billions of dollars in venture capital, offering us world-class models for peanuts, or sometimes for free. Why? Because they were engaged in a classic land grab. They weren't trying to build a profitable business in the traditional sense. They were trying to capture market share, lock users into their ecosystems, and outpace competitors before the music stopped. It was a brilliant strategy on paper. If you're a startup founder and you have a bottomless pit of VC cash, you don't care about margins. You care about user acquisition. You care about headlines. You care about dominance. It was blitzscaling 2.0. The logic was simple. Get as many people as possible using your tool, make them addicted to your workflow, and worry about the money later. And for a while, it worked. We all got used to cheap, powerful, limitless AI. We got used to the magic. But here is the thing about venture capital. It's not charity, it's an investment, and eventually the investors want their money back. They want to see a return. Recently, the tide turned. The narrative in Silicon Valley has shifted violently from grow, grow, grow to show me the margins. The macroeconomic environment shifted, capital became more expensive, and suddenly the growth at all costs mentality looks less like genius and more like a liability. You see, these AI companies are now caught in a vice. On one side, you have the massive ballooning costs of training and running these frontier models. On the other side, you have the pressure from investors who are tired of looking at user growth graphs and want to see actual sustainable revenue. When you see companies like Anthropic or Microsoft making these adjustments, it's not because they suddenly decided they wanted to squeeze a few extra bucks out of their customers, it's because they've hit the limit. They've realized that the current model, where they essentially subsidize your usage of their AI, is not a business plan. It's a runway-burning machine. They've realized that if they continue to provide these premium services at those low price points, they aren't just losing money, they are accelerating their own bankruptcy. They are being forced to pivot in real time from a strategy of buying users to a strategy of capturing value. It's a painful transition, and frankly, it's going to be messy. You're going to see more confusing subscription tiers, more limits on unlimited plans, and more companies trying to figure out exactly how much a user is worth versus how much it costs to keep the lights on for them. The party of infinite subsidized AI is effectively over. But why are they doing this now? Why the scramble to change the rules of the game just as the AI wave is supposed to be peaking? Because they are staring down a wall of reality that they can no longer ignore. They aren't fighting for users anymore. They are fighting for the math to work. They are staring down a wall of reality called unit economics. So why does the math break down? Why are these companies suddenly scrambling to rewrite their pricing terms? To understand this, we have to move past the hype and look at the ledger. We need to distinguish between two massive buckets of spending, CapEx and OpEx. When the media talks about AI, they focus on the CapEx, the capital expenditure. This is the billions of dollars spent on NVIDIA GPUs, the data centers, the electricity to train the model. That's a one-time, massive upfront investment. It's the cost of building the factory. And yes, it's expensive, but investors have been happy to fund that because they see it as the moat. They think, if we build the best model, we win. But the real silent killer, the one that actually forces companies to hike your subscription prices, isn't the training. It's the OpEx, the operating expenditure of inference. Think of inference as the inference tax. Every single time you type a prompt into an AI, every time you ask for a summary, a piece of code, or an image, that isn't free. It consumes compute cycles. It requires real-time processing power. It burns electricity. It demands cooling. In traditional software, the software as a service world we've been living in for 2 decades, the marginal cost of adding one more user is effectively zero. Once you've built the software, whether you have 100 users or 100,000 users, your server costs don't change drastically. That's why SaaS was the holy grail of business models: infinite scalability, zero marginal cost. But AI breaks that model completely. In AI, the marginal cost is not zero. It is high, and it is variable. If you have 10,000 users who each ask 10 questions a day, you have a certain bill. If those users suddenly decide to ask 50 questions a day because they're getting addicted to the tool, your bill doesn't just go up a little, it explodes. It scales linearly, or even exponentially depending on the model's complexity. This is the trap. We, as users, have been trained to treat AI like a static software asset, like a spreadsheet or a photo editor. But it's not. It's not a product you own, it's a service you consume. Actually, I'll take it a step further. We treat AI like software, but it's actually a utility. It's more like a power plant. Think about that for a second. A power plant doesn't get cheaper the more people plug into the grid. In fact, if the grid becomes too crowded and you haven't built enough capacity, the cost per unit of energy skyrockets. Every request you make to an LLM is a demand on the grid. If you keep demand high without charging the user the full cost of that electricity, you aren't running a business, you are hemorrhaging cash. This is the inference tax. It is the relentless variable cost that every AI company is paying on your behalf. For the last year, they were paying this tax for you to get you hooked. Now, the venture capital coffers are tightening, and they're realizing they can't afford to pay your tax anymore. They are passing the bill on to you. And here's the kicker. This isn't just a temporary hiccup in pricing. This is a fundamental constraint of the technology. Until we find a way to make models exponentially cheaper to run, which, spoiler alert, is incredibly difficult, these companies are always going to be battling this variable cost. So if you're looking at these companies and thinking, why aren't they scaling like a traditional tech company? That's your answer. They aren't traditional tech. They're running a service, and they're paying a tax on every single interaction. But there is a group of players in this industry who are looking at this inference tax and smiling, because they aren't the ones paying it, they're the ones collecting it. So if the inference tax is the brutal reality for AI startups, then who is actually making money here? In every gold rush in history, the people who actually get rich aren't the ones digging in the dirt for gold. It's the ones selling the shovels, the pickaxes, and the Levi's jeans. And in the AI gold rush, we are seeing the exact same pattern emerge. There is a massive divide right now between the pure-play AI companies, the ones racing to build the most impressive chatbot or the smartest coding assistant, and the infrastructure giants. The pure-play startups are fighting for users, constantly lowering prices to stay competitive, and as we discussed, they are getting crushed by the inference tax. Every query their users make is a direct hit to their operating margins. But look at the giants, the Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and the semiconductor leaders of the world. They aren't just selling AI, they are selling the shovels. They are selling the cloud capacity, the proprietary chips, and the energy access that the rest of the industry desperately needs to function. This is why they seem so bing-tan, calm amidst all this volatility. While a startup is sweating every time a user prompts their model to generate a paragraph, the cloud provider is just collecting rent on the data center. They don't care if the AI is a hit or a miss, they get paid either way. They are the ones controlling the grid. And this leads to the most critical insight for any serious observer of this market. You need to stop looking at the algorithm and start looking at the resources. The market has been obsessed with the AI models themselves, how many parameters, how fast the token generation is, which model is smarter today. That's the shiny object. But if you're trying to understand the economic structure of this industry, ignore the smarter model and look at the harder assets. Look at who owns the physical constraints. We are entering an era where AI capability is going to be capped by electricity, by cooling, and by compute availability. If you are an investor trying to navigate this landscape, don't just chase the newest, flashiest AI product that's currently burning cash to acquire users. Instead, look for the players who control the underlying infrastructure, the companies that own the shovels. The smart money isn't betting on which AI model will be the ultimate winner in 5 years. The smart money is betting on the companies that will still be collecting the check from every single model that manages to survive. Because here's the reality. Even if the AI market goes through a massive shakeout and 90% of these startups disappear, the infrastructure winners will still be there. They'll still be providing the cloud space. They'll still be designing the chips. They'll still be supplying the power. When the gold rush ends, the miners go home, but the shovel sellers stay rich. Keep that in mind because that is the defining strategy of the winners in this tech transition. So, where does this leave us? Is the AI revolution over? Absolutely not. It's just growing up. We are witnessing a fundamental shift from the speculative phase of this industry to the industrial phase. The companies that cannot master their own unit economics, the ones that are being eaten alive by their own inference tax, are going to be culled. It's a painful but necessary part of market maturation. Meanwhile, the infrastructure winners, the ones who own the grid and supply the shovels, are cementing their position as the bedrock of the entire digital economy. Here's my advice. Stop being distracted by vanity metrics. User growth makes for a great headline, but it is a terrible predictor of long-term success in this environment. Don't be the person who gets fooled by a flashy, subsidized demo while the balance sheet is quietly on fire. Keep your eyes on the math. Look for the unit economics. That is the only metric that will matter in the long run. If you want to take this a step further and learn how to actually break down an AI stock's valuation based on these specific operating costs, I'm planning a deep dive series on exactly that. If you're interested, comment the word unit down below. That will tell me to prioritize that breakdown for our next video. Thanks for watching, stay smart, and I'll see you.